Dr. Don Elder has been heading political news bulletins recently over his failure to appear before a Parliament committee. The ODT's Dene MacKenzie is here to give us some background on the issue. Good evening, Dean.
Hi.
First of all, tell us a little bit about Solid Energy, which of course Dr. Don Elder is involved with.
Well, it started off as state coal mines back in the 1860s when just after coal was discovered, coincidentally at Shag Point, just up the road a bit, and then it was so that gave the government the right to take over any land that they could find coal on. It became Coal Corp in 1987, and then became Solid Energy in 1996. So basically, it was up until 1996, it was just a coal miner, and when it became Solid Energy, then they started looking at diversification. So they have huge coal holdings in the Waikato and mainly the west coast, and a bit in, well, latterly in Southland, northern Southland. Yeah.
What's the problem at the moment that has sent them into the headlines?
Well, a couple of things. Well, one of them is really major in the fact that their debts has plummeted basically to nearly 400 million from, just a year ago they were saying how rosy things were. And the other thing, of course, is Don Elder resigned suddenly in February 4, and so that's been propelling them into the headlines. So new chairman, Mark Ford, he turned up to a select committee hearing last week with the new chief executive, and basically they couldn't answer any of the committee's questions because it was outside their time at the company. So, yeah.
Now the company is, as you said, is in debt. How did it get into that position?
Well, one of the major things, I looked at the company a couple of years ago, and the Treasury has a unit called the Crown Monitoring Unit, and it oversees state-owned enterprises, of which Solid Energy is one. So you can see then that they were borrowing a bit to go into, they wanted to diversify, so they wanted to go into biofuels, and that was going to cost them a bit, so they set up a plant in Canterbury and they planted some seed that didn't germinate, and they also bought up farmland in eastern Southland, sort of around Matara, in between Matara and Gore. Then they're going to make, and they built a briquette plant, so they were going to put out low-grade coal, pull that out of the ground, and then turn it into briquettes, which produce high energy. So they borrowed, and that time coal was about $200 US a tonne, and so no one thought the coal would go down because China's economy was just booming. But then China's economy started to slow down, and then so they ordered less coal, and then the Australian steel providers, manufacturers, they had less orders to China, they needed less coal, and so they started in China, then Australia, and then Solid Energy, basically.
Why did Don Elder resign?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and literally because that's what he's being paid at the moment, even though he's allegedly on gardening leave. And hopefully we'll find out on Thursday, because he has now agreed to front another select committee hearing. And John Palmer, the former chairman, who's also resigned, they've agreed to front too. So, I think both of them could see the writing on the wall. It's a lot of debt. It was always going to look bad. It was probably better to get out new broom and break the news in a different sort of way. But Elder's saying that he was always willing to appear, and that the new Solid Energy management stopped him. They said that the management said they didn't think they needed him. So it's going to be blooming interesting on Thursday, that's for sure.
What do you think's next for the company?
Well, the government's pulled it off the list of companies to sell. It's close to bankruptcy. It's laid off hundreds of workers. Bill English, Finance Minister, said he won't let it fail. Mark Ford is really the government's go-to guy for fixing bad problems, and if he can't, and so he's hopeful that they can sort of see the debt turning around. So really, it's going to take a while to get rid of them. They just had massive assets, and now they've almost got a worthless portfolio. So it's going to take a while. But as I said, English said it won't fail. Mark Ford's confident they can reduce the debt, and they've sort of got a plan heading out into the future. So yeah, that's what I think.
ODT political editor Dene MacKenzie, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.